Calls to check a cholera outbreak in South Africa are increasing. At least 20 people have died in the country. Many of these deaths occurred in the Hammanskraal township, now referred to as the epicenter of the outbreak. And now there are fears the outbreak could spread across the country to unaffected areas. But the outbreak has brought to the fore the inefficiencies and lapses in water treatment at the local government levels in these townships. Now, residents say the government has simply failed them. Earlier today, health officials addressed the public regarding the spread of this disease. Take a listen to Health Minister Dr. Joe Pala.
24th to 30th of May, the number of patients seen with diarrhea and vomiting from 162 the previous 7 days has come down to 30. It's a definite decline in terms of overall diarrhea cases. Secondly, in terms of those confirmed, even those of diarrhea, in terms of serious illness, very significant decline. People are coming early, even those who have symptoms, they are treated, and we are not having any, even in Jubilee Hospital as we speak. Of course, deployed additional staff, nurses, and also with the doctors from the Doctors Without Borders also assisting us. Also, emergency medical services to make sure that if patients present who need transfer, they can be attended to in terms of oral rehydration and other immediate treatment. Variety of reasons. The only definite source which we could locate is the earlier outbreak of Johannesburg, which could be traced to traveling into a country which is endemic with cholera, which is Malawi.
You heard Dr. Joe Pala, who's health minister for the country. Now, joining our conversation to digest this further, Anya Duplessis, who is associate professor and research specialist in integrated water resource management from the University of South Africa, Pretoria. And then we also have Mohomosi Seleke, who is Denosa Swani Regional Secretary in Swani North of Pretoria. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to the square. I want to start with you. Indeed. I want to start with you, Anya. The concern for a lot of experts like yourself has been identifying the source. Listening to Dr. Pala, did you get the impression that the real source of the outbreak has been identified?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to say yes. Due to the complete dysfunctional and non-compliant wastewater treatment works, it's very difficult to identify a source when you don't know what's going on within your own systems. People have now died since Saturday. This could have been completely avoided and should have been avoided. The people from Hammanskraal have been highlighting this to government, whether it be the DA in the past 6 years or the ANC government. At the end of the day, they are both responsible for the crisis that we are sitting at this point in time. Unfortunately, as I said, it could have been avoided. Now, the larger issue is now, where else is cholera within South Africa's waters? I read this morning that they've identified cases within the Northwest Province. We know that a person passed away in the Free State, as well as then in Limpopo Province as well. So the cases of cholera are expanding, which is concerning. And then what's also very concerning is that they have not really identified the source. I know that the Hammanskraal community, they struggle to get water. So at this point in time, they're using water tankers. But as it's been said by them to the Minister of Water Affairs and Sanitation, there's a water mafia, which one of my master's students also identified in 2018, which sent the report to the municipality for them to further investigate. Unfortunately, nothing has happened. So unfortunately, because you've got so many sources of water, because of the Hammanskraal residents being actually desperate to get clean water, the source can actually be anywhere. I know that they said that they did test the drinking water. They first only tested for E. coli as well as fecal coli. Now, that does not indicate cholera. You have to test for the bacteria itself.
I see. And I was going to ask you about that because Dr. Parla reiterated that trying to pass that information on to the public that Swanee City authorities have tested the water. I'll let you have a bit more on that, but let me move on to Mohomosi. Mohomosi, your association has identified serious problems with helping out as far as staff strength of health workers is concerned. Here we are, there was a presser, this issue was not mentioned, although Dr. Pala makes mention of the fact that they have additional staff. How are you processing what you heard from Dr. Pala?
Thank you very much, ma'am, and we want to send condolences to the families who have passed on to this particular cholera. And we want, before we speak, to concur with the Prof by saying this particular problem could have been avoided, and politicians have just been playing about it and not taking it serious. Dr. Pala, he just spoke on television like always, but we are not convinced because we are on the ground. We were there just not so long ago, but staff was not there. He promised us to beef up the staff there, but only one unit was beefed. There were 2 units that was not beefed up with staff as we speak, and this particular unit were still struggling with a lot of admission of cases of cholera. So we are not convinced because we are on the ground. We don't agree with you because we are on the ground.
I see. I come back to you, Anya, and you talked about, you know, the water situation over there and the tests that were that were done earlier. You're telling us that what they tested isn't cholera?
Well, firstly, when you test for E. coli or fecal coli, those can be used as an indicator of that the water source does contain sewage. So meaning that your wastewater treatment plants or your water treatment plants as a whole is not functioning properly. So what they did first was they tested for E. coli, they tested for fecal coliform, which is a pathogen attributed to sewage pollution. However, cholera can only be identified by a patient's stool being tested for the bacteria. So when they do test the water, whether it now be the stream or the river close by to Hammanskraal or the water tankers or anything by that means, they have to test for the bacteria itself. We can test for E. coli and fecal coliform for sewage pollution. However, if we want to know the magnitude as well as the scale of this crisis, we will have to test for cholera itself.
I see. I want to stay with you, Professor Du Plessis, and I want us to look at one of the things or a couple of the things that you have mentioned in the past. You've talked about the dysfunctional municipalities. You've talked about the water treatment. You've also talked about sewage. Now, tell us a bit more about this, but also tell us how these are related to the outbreak we're seeing now.
Well, first of all, in terms of dysfunctional municipalities, it's a major issue within the country. If you have dysfunctional municipalities, you will have dysfunctional services or no services at all. So we know in terms of our local government, it is in crisis due to mismanagement, alleged corruption, lack of human resources, such as my colleague said with his comment regarding, you know, the people on the ground, medical professionals that are supposed to assist the community. So in terms of that, local municipalities have the mandate to treat and manage water as well as deal with water access, as well as then obviously supplying reliable clean water supply. It is a constitutional right within the country, but also a human right on a global scale. So that's our municipalities in a nutshell. When we look at our dysfunctional wastewater treatment plants, that's once again attributed to overall non-compliance, mismanagement, underinvestment, or the misappropriation of funds. If we look at the Green Drop report that was released last year, Over 80% of our wastewater treatment systems are dysfunctional and in a critical state. That means that most of the wastewater treatment plants are not treating sewage or any other wastewater effluent, which is a major concern because that will obviously contribute to immense human health risks, like we are seeing now, unfortunately, within Hammanskraal. So that is in terms of that. If we look at our potable water, yes, some of the municipalities are performing well, such as Rand Water and some of the other water boards. However, we need to now test and evaluate our water systems, especially our potable water, and test it for cholera. That is the only way that we will know what we are dealing with. And I've highlighted mismanagement, partly because our water monitoring networks are in shambles at this point in time. The latest data that I could get was from middle.
Well, I think we lost Anya's connection again. We lost
Sorry,
you
it's
just a little
located-
bit before you ended your sentence. I'll come back to you, Anya, in a bit. But Mohomosi, I want us to talk about the Jubilee Hospital because it's one of those that Dr. Pala mentioned and also indicated that additional staff had been taken there. From your point of view, what do you observe on the ground at this epicenter hospital?
What we observe is that the resources are there. They've tried to put the resources, like there was a tent that was erected not so long. It was erected on Friday last week. But the problem is that we are raising as an organization that you can't put the resources without human resources. So there are equipment in that particular tent, but there's no people who are working on that particular tent. And the minister, they did make a call for that nurses must come and volunteer their services, not actually volunteer, but come and render their services in terms of, then they'll pay the nurses after that. But that was done on the media, and soon after that, when nurses came in their numbers to say we are here to assist, there was now a word from management that there was no longer budget to cater for those particular nurses. So on the ground, as we speak, the cases are reducing. We agree with the minister on that particular part, and that's the message that we have, I think, from God to say that the case must reduce. But if in the case where the case were perpetually coming, we're going to have a crisis because the department is not willing to put their money on staff members who are necessary in this particular regard.
How many members are we talking about, Mohomosi?
Members in terms of what?
In terms of, those who are asking to be roped into the the medical staff strength.
Okay, the hospital is not that big. The wards that we identified not to have people who are needed were 2 wards, were Ward 18 and the 10 that is erected. We have only 3 wards currently that admit people who have cholera. It's Ward 17, Ward 18, and the 10 that is erected. So on the 2 tents that were the 10th and the Ward 18, they were not staffed at all. The staff was only in Ward 1, in Ward 17. And then it meant that ward was overburdened by people because the other 2 wards that were meant for cholera were not functioning due to staff shortage. So what in terms of maybe looking at 18 people per ward just to function on that particular day. That's the number that we're looking at. Maybe we're looking at 32 to 34 people that will be coming on duty to come and assist in that day. But you remember, those nurses work on shifts. The one would work during the day, the other shift will work during the night. So that number will have to double, and others will have to rest at some point.
I see. I'm going to be back to you in a moment. Let's move on to Anya now. Anya, you mentioned that there was a problem with the water system that should have been dealt with years ago, and here we are. So my question is, can the people of Hammanskraal trust the tankers that are bringing them the water?
Look, from the research that I have done, no. I've heard from the Hammanskraal community many experiences whereby the water tankers arrive, the community goes there with their containers, and then before they can get water, the water tanker person or whoever tells them that they need to pay. So that's one of the issues that they've got. Then they've also highlighted the issue of, they can't trust the drinking water that is supplied through the communal taps. Now they've seen that many people are now obviously moving towards other sources, which in some cases are our rivers, which are unfortunately saturated with pollution, especially sewage. So you've got that issue where the Hammanskraal community has been failed completely and immensely for the past 16 years. And unfortunately now, with this tragic case, it costs people their lives before something is actually being done. So if I listen to my colleague when he speaks about, what's actually happening on the ground, that is very concerning. It's the same as what happened in Jagersfontein when the mine slams dam absolutely obliterated the community. The ministers and politicians visited the area, and I've seen recent reports from community members to saying that promises were made and nothing is happening. Hopefully that has changed, but we are seeing increased cases, especially within our vulnerable communities, which cannot afford to go and buy water or put a solar panel on their roof. We're sitting with a cost of living crisis, and now we're also sitting with a water pollution crisis. At least with the energy crisis, I can have a flashlight or a candle and I can wait for the 2 or 4 hours. If the power does come back, I can function in that way. However, water is the basis of life on earth, our economy, our socio-economic growth, but also the health of our population. So I really hope that the necessary resources are given and that we have some kind of accountability at this point in time.
I see. We've seen, the political angle of this, and the politics that has come out of water provision, portable water provision for people in the township. Feel free to comment on that. But my question to you is, what can be done at this point to ensure that people are saved from, or rather, prevented from getting cholera?
Well, at this point in time, there's not a lot of things that especially vulnerable communities can do because they are completely dependent on the water supplied by the government. So for me, I would say that the Department of Water and Sanitation needs to put in a proper action plan to assist these communities so that they do get water of a suitable standard. I know the gift of the givers, they've given them potable water, bottled water. Other NGOs have also assisted. So I think the community, if I was there, I would trust the gift of the givers and whoever else more than the government at this point in time, which has failed them over the past 16 years.
That's tough to hear, but if things don't change for the better, what are we up against as far as this outbreak is concerned, Anya?
It's not going to be good, to be quite honest. That's why we need to close the lid on this as soon as possible. And you can't do that if you don't know the extent or the magnitude of the problem that you are dealing with. Yes, we know there are reported cases within Hammanskraal. However, as the can of worms is now coming out, more and more cases of cholera are starting to be reported by hospitals. So this is not a long-term or a medium-term action plan that needs to be implemented. It needs now urgent attention. Assist medical professionals to provide the communities with the services that they require and make sure that your wastewater treatment plants start to receive attention. However, the issue that we're also dealing with is there's a complete breakdown of trust. And then now also we have the misappropriation of funds. So they have said that it costs more than 6 billion to be able to fix this issue. This is only one wastewater treatment plant. Where are we going with the rest? What are the people in KZN doing as well with their water, with their wastewater treatment plants also not being fixed, despite over 500 million being given to the municipality to address the issue? So I would say that we need to establish an independent regulator or within the Treasury, and we need to start making use of people that have knowledge on the ground. That would be my issue, my recommendation.
Speaking of people on the ground, Mohamoti, you have the rest of our time. I mean, outside of the outbreak, members of your association should have been given employment as of 1st April. What has been the engagement with the government like? What are they telling you? And what is the way forward for the SONA?
The government has been reducing the budget of Department of Health over the years. And it seems like the issue of shortage, they don't take it very serious. The problem, I think, is that we are led by people who are not clinical, who are not in the wards, who are not running wards and understand what is happening on the roads. There's something that we call staff establishment. The staff establishment is the number of people who should be in a certain ward at a particular time. But that particular staff establishment, they've been tampered with by the department and reducing the staff establishment across all the institutions. Unfortunately, the Department of Health in South Africa does not care about the staff members or the health system as it is currently now. They don't give much attention to the staff. As long as they get the output from the staff that is there, they don't care about the condition of those particular staff members. They don't care how much overwork they do by themselves in that particular ward. And this particular issue is perpetuated by managers as well of these particular institutions. Because when the MECs come and visit the institution, when the ministers come and visit the institution portray to the ministers as if they are functioning well. So there's no correct yardstick to measure the staff output as to vis-a-vis the work they do. As we speak currently, we believe that the department, they only listen to the CEOs giving reports that are not actually the true reflection of what is happening on the ground. And therefore, as we speak now, there's a lot of cries on the ground. Our nurses are not happy at all. But the department, if you can ask them, they'll tell you that our nurses are happy and they are coping very well in their different wards.
I wish we had more time to continue, but that'll be all for now. Thank you, Ania. Thank you, Muhomoti, for your insight on this subject.